Obviously, that impacted different areas of my life, like my confidence and sex life.
They determined it was something different. They determined it was colitis, and that's how they wanted to treat me, give me cancer drugs.
Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lucy Davis and I am your host today as always. And today I've got two of my favourite girls with me. I have got my head coach, Morwenna, who works with me very closely in Self Love Club. She also helps me with my inbox and, is doing much more of the assistant role as well. So that is who Morwenna is. She's absolutely amazing. And the beautiful Clair Tebbut, who is one of my very, very nearest and dearest friends. And she's got such a beautiful journey and she's got such beautiful experience on this topic of how powerful the plants are. So let's start with you, Morwenna. Do you just want to give a really quick high-level introduction into who you are, so people that have never seen you before know a little bit more than just you're my head coach?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Morwenna. I am from Devon in the UK. I've worked with Lucy for a number of years now. Before that, I was in a corporate job, which I have left, yay, for quite a few years now. I didn't realise how quickly the time's gone. And I have a passion about plants. I'm very, very connected to the earth, growing my own plants, and vegetables and fruits and things like that. So it's really important to me. We're all connected to the earth, and we should embrace it a lot more than we actually have. And we've been distracted from what's actually there for us if we choose to see it. So yeah, I'm really excited for this chat.
Yeah, we actually do need to talk a lot about how green-fingered you are during this chat, Morwenna, because it is so bloody impressive what you have done in the past. I know you've had to move recently, and things have changed for you in that sense, but it's like what you've done from a growing perspective, and the vision that you've got is so beautiful. So we must share that. Thank you, honey. Claire.
Hi everyone, so I'm Claire. I've known Lucy, gosh, must be at 25 years now. Yeah, and
we don't look old enough. We don't look old enough for that, Claire.
No. It wasn't really 25 years. I'm joking. Yeah, so I followed Lucy when she started her healing journey, because we'd obviously lost touch, like you do, and I was going through a bit of a tough time myself with my health, and I discovered that there were lots of different things in the plant world that could help with my healing, which you'll learn about later, because my story is very similar to Lucy's. If you know, doctors weren't helping me, medication made me worse. So yes, I'm just going to leave it there. I won't sort of talk too much about it. We can do that in a bit.
Yeah, awesome. So, all of us have had huge journeys in our own respective worlds. And we found ourselves coming together over a commonality, I guess we could call it, of the power in the plants. So, I think I can hear myself talking back. Oh no, it's gone. That was weird. So I think the best place to start is to all acknowledge, so that everybody else feels comfortable that are watching it. Like, we've all had massive health journeys. Right, we've all had absolute massive health journeys. I make no secret of mine. It's in my book. It's across all of my videos. I've had things from chronic digestive issues, chronic hormone issues, all the way through to my hair falling out, putting on weight, losing weight, eruptions in my skin, tumors, you name it, it's all gone on. And through all of that journey, in the incubator years of what I'm going to call it, like the years when I was working in corporate, and I had no idea the lifestyle that I was leading was actually incubating all of these things that were going on. I had the physical symptoms, like my periods were very, they were always regular, but they were very heavy. Sometimes they'd last for a month at a time, and I had, many operations to remove polyps and fibroids and things like that. On top of that, I was in hospital, and Claire, you probably remember this, every month having some sort of colonoscopy or endoscopy or barium meal, or all these weird and wonderful things that I was being put through because of the severity of the health issues within me. I had something called Helicobacter pylori, which is an extremely strong strain of bacteria that feeds off of your stomach acid. Like, that's how bad my health was, you know, like it was a literal mess. So when I talk about this subject, I want you guys to know, like, the version that you see of me today, the version that you see of Claire, and the version that you see of Morwenna today is not where we started this journey. It's very important that we all recognize that we had massive, massive health issues, and we found solace in certain things. So Morwenna, I don't know if you want to give a quick little update where your health was at.
Yeah, so I suppose around 10 years ago now, actually probably before that, I was diagnosed with something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. So like you, I had a lot of issues around my womb. I had growths on my womb. I had irregular periods. I had acne. Really quite, well, if anybody's had acne, it's bloody painful, like really painful. Facial hair is another symptom of what I had. So I used to joke and say I was like the bearded woman because I used to constantly wax my face and things because it was so apparent. Spots on my back, things like that. Along with that came weight gain. So basically, with that condition that I owned at the time,
Didn't we
you
all,
become
darling?
insulin. Yeah, you become insulin resistant. So almost like a diabetic, very, very similar, and you will pile on the weight. I could literally just look at food and put on weight. So that's where I was with my health, really sort of high level.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously that had lots of different things that impacted different areas of my life, like my confidence and sex life and, you know, relationships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they're the things that people don't tend to talk about, right? Like we get the symptoms of a physical dis-ease in our body, but we don't actually talk about libido. We don't talk about the fact, like for me, I always talk about the hormone issues that I had, the womb issues that I had, the digestive issues. But what you just sparked there, Morwenna, was I used to get these boils under my skin and they were so sore. It was like a lump would come up under the skin and you could see it, and it was like a red helmet under the skin, and you touch it and it was so painful, but you couldn't squeeze it, you couldn't get it, nothing like that. And you know, it's something that you quickly forget when you step away and you're feeling healthy and happy.
That's just reminded me, I used to get them in my armpits and in my groin as well. It's really painful.
I've only ever had one thing go on under my armpits, and it's in my book, and I literally let somebody syringe it. Oh my God, I would never do that again. So let's move on from the armpit chat. That's gross.
Okay, no armpits.
So between Morwenna and I, obviously lots of hormone issues and digestive issues, weight, hair, you know, all sorts of other things like skin issues, things like that. So Claire, let's just get a high level. Now, I know your journey has been extremely complex. So just again, high level, so that people that are listening go, okay, that's what is going on with me, or I've got something similar like that.
Okay, so mine started with digestive system and my digestive system, and it literally just went to pot. I'd been on holiday to Thailand. I'd already had a bit of a bad reaction to something anyway. And then I came back. I literally just couldn't stop going to the toilet. It ended up turning yellow. And it smelled like perming lotion. So ammonia, I think it is. Yeah, it literally turned into ammonia. That's what my body was doing. And I thought, oh my God, I'm literally just dying from the inside. It was absolutely awful. And I dropped to about 6.5 stone, got to the hospital, and they told me I would have had like 2 days left if I hadn't got there when I did, because my blood levels had really dropped as well. So I'm trying to keep this sort of high level, but there was so much that went on. But they determined it was something different. They determined it was colitis, and that's how they wanted to treat me, give me cancer drugs, which made me more poorly. And in essence, basically, it took me about 4 years, I think, to actually discover what was really wrong, thanks to Lucy.
Can I just take a step back, Claire? Because obviously I know your journey a little bit more than other people that would be listening to this.
Sure.
So you believe, I think that's the right way to put it, that some of the inoculations that you had to take to go to Thailand were partly responsible for this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, literally within a week, I was on the floor after having that. And again, I literally just couldn't stop going to the toilet. And that just progressed as I went to Thailand and managed to pick up things out there, which we'll go into a little bit later. But there was lots of bleeding, lots of inflammation, and so painful, and probably the same as what you went through with the hospitals. You know, some of the things that you had to have done, you know, you're being probed pretty much all the time. And yeah, and I want to go back to what Morwenna said about the whole sort of libido thing as well, because when you're shitting yourself, for a better word, you know, you're just worried that anything could happen. So literally that's the last thing on your mind. So, you know,
and let's just address that right here, ladies, because like we don't talk enough about sex, in my opinion. I believe that we all need to be much more open, and actually we need our sisterhood to be able to help us feel comfortable talking about sex. It's something that, you know, a lot of people go through. Now, I know because I've been in a relationship before, and interestingly enough, it was when I was going through a lot of my health issues that I actually lost my libido for about 9 months, something like that. And so, of course, he thought I was cheating and all of this stuff, which I wasn't doing. But it's because I had lost it because of my issues. It's really difficult to get it back, isn't it? Once you've gone off of it for a month or 2 months or 6 months or 9 months or whatever that period of time is, it is really challenging to get that back on track, because you're in your head about it, your partner's in their head about it. You know, there's this almost disconnect between you both. And actually, sex is such a healthy part of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, it's so important. It's a huge part of a relationship. And I think when not only did I lose my libido, but I lost all confidence in myself when I was going through what I was going through. I didn't want anybody to touch me.
Is that because you'd put on weight, Morwenna?
So I put on weight. My skin was.
I want women to recognise.
Yeah. No, it was because I put on weight and I couldn't control. I was out of control with it. My skin was horrendous. My hair looked great. Like I felt gross, and you know, and I didn't want him to touch me. There was nothing wrong with our relationship. It wasn't because of something he was doing. It was because of how I was feeling about myself. And now I obviously understand that and I recognize that, and I've done lots of work on that. But yeah, and then the libido, and then like you said, it just becomes awkward. It feels awkward because you've either got to have a really sort of frank conversation about it, like, can we have, like, you end up kind of asking for it, which is just weird. You shouldn't ask. I mean, you can make jokes and, you know, play with each other around the subject, but when your partner's coming to you and saying, I need to have sex, can we have sex, it becomes a chore then as well, and then it makes it even more weird.
Exactly.
And the pressure that you put on yourself when you feel that way is huge as well.
Yeah. So this is really important, right? This is a really important part of the dis-ease that's in the body, is that we allow ourselves to become dis-eased. And I'm just going to ask a really quick question, and just give me a yes or no answer. Before you got sick, Morwenna, or before, you know, the lead up to you being diagnosed, were you living a clean life, or were you, you know, just what normal people do, partying a bit, drinking alcohol, maybe smoking, you know, eating fatty foods or takeaways maybe a few times a week or whatever, like just what I call living normally?
Yeah, absolutely. I was living a what I would consider then a normal life.
And how about you, Claire?
So I thought I was, like we all do, you know, but actually I wasn't, because I was still eating, like, you know, processed foods, still drinking quite a lot, and I changed my diet to what I thought it should be. But yeah, very much the same.
Because I remember with you particularly, Claire, obviously Morwenna, I didn't know you back then, but with you, Claire, I know, like, obviously we met when we were partying back in the day, so we used to grab the chips on the way home or whatever it used to be and have the alcohol and whatever. But then I saw an evolution in you whereby you did become a bit cleaner with your diet. But it's interesting that now you say, no, looking back, it was what people perceive to be normal, and normal, I'm not saying is good. You know, people go, oh, it's just normal to have a takeaways a couple of times a week. It's normal to have a glass of wine every mealtime. It's actually not normal to do that. It's actually a lot of sugar, a lot of fat. And I'm not criticizing people here. You know, I was that person. I was probably the worst leading up to all of my sickness and disease, and my body attempted to, like, stopped me so many times, but I just wouldn't listen, because I loved a party. I loved a glass of wine. I loved going out to get absolutely wrecked at the weekend. I loved going out for steak dinners with my girlfriends. Like, that was our thing in London. Every Thursday night we'd go to the most amazing steak restaurant. You know, I was living a life of pure stress. I worked on the trading floor. I was grabbing food here and there. I was exercising like the obligatory 3 times a week, but really I'd rock up at the gym, get a little bit of a sweat on and go home. You know, like, now I train. Now is what happens. And I don't think that we ever stop to recognize that life that we were leading, because everybody believes it's normal, it's actually not normal. It's not normal to put poison in your body. It's not normal to be lazy. It's not normal to just kick back and sit on your hind, right?
It's been normalized.
Yes.
It's been normalized because it's part of a much bigger wheel that obviously we won't go into that.
Not open that
We've
can of
sat here all day. But it
want
has been normalized. It makes people believe that eating the sugar and stuff is normal, but actually it's really not, and that's not what was intended for our bodies ever.
Absolutely.
Like, if it was, it would be natural.
Exactly. Yeah. What were you going to say?
And that's what I was just going to say as well, because I actually stopped eating meat back in 2010. And that's why I thought, oh, well, I'm healthy now because I'm cutting out the meat. But actually, I was still eating the cheesy chips with the mayonnaise, you know, and things like that. But I thought I was doing good.
Chips in years.
They sound good. Sorry, just put it in everyone's heads now.
Yeah,
but, you know.
Everyone's going to be like, thanks, Claire. Now we've just gone for cheesy chips. Yeah, thanks, Claire.
That was my thing. Yeah, that was my thing on a Saturday night. It was like my treat. I was like, you know.
Well, do you know, I went one step worse than that. So I loved cheesy chips too, but I'd always get it with curry sauce.
Oh, curry
now
sauce.
you know how much sugar and fat and everything is loaded in those little pots of curry sauce from a chippy, you know, like it's just absolutely next level. But again, I'd be like, well, chips and cheese is a healthier snack than, you know, going for a pizza or going for, you know, and we normalize it and we justify it, don't we?
Yeah.
But the thing is we've got dis-ease in our body. What we're essentially doing with any sugars, any fats that aren't, you know, from plants, and decent fats, when I talk about this, we're actually feeding the dis-ease. Now, sugar is a really good one, and I'm probably going to trigger the heck out of some people here. But if you have cancer, the first thing you need to do is remove all sugars that do not come from fruits, i.e. are real, from organic fruits, I would like to say as well, because a lot of the genetically modified stuff has obviously got, they don't have the goodness of normal fruits. So if you are, you know, if it's tragic enough that you get in that. Now, cancer makes you crave sugar. It literally makes you crave sugar. You will be finding yourself eating chocolate, eating sweets, reaching for things with a high sugar content in it. And most people don't realize a can of tomato soup has about 9 to 12 teaspoons of sugar in it. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the one, but the one that begins with H in the UK and ends with a Z, that's got like 9 to 12 teaspoons of sugar in. Cup of soups, things like that, they are loaded with sugar. So, you know, in all their innocence, people are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to have a little bit of soup. Now, the only way to get goodness from soup is making it at home. So you know what's going in there, and you know that there's no additives and no sugars in there, because what happens, like I say, is that your body is physically craving. Now, I had an amazing conversation with a holistic dentist yesterday, who I keep talking about. And like, literally, I'm in love with this man. He's amazing. He was so good. And he actually, I was talking to him about parasites in the gut. This is why I love holistic people, because they're open to these conversations. And we were having these conversations about the way that parasites work in the gut. And he said to me, Lucy, there's new studies that have been found that actually when you've got a parasite in your gut, and Claire, you might resonate with this, what they actually do is they inject you with something to numb the area, a bit like anesthetic, and then they'll bite you. And it's the same when you've got something in your gums or something anywhere in your body. So what you need to do is bear that in mind. Whatever's going on with your physical vessel right now, and it might not be parasites, it might be cancer. What it's doing is it's basically manipulating your brain so that you feel comfortable. Oh yeah, well, it's just a chocolate bar, or it's just sugar in my tea. You know, and so we're overcompensating. But what we're doing with that is we are feeding the tumors, we are feeding the dis-ease in our body. Sugar is, like, you know, white refined sugar is the most dangerous drug on the planet.
Yeah, it's the same with I found with dementia as well.
Oh,
dementia
really?
patients crave sweet.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, my ex-partner's mother passed away from because of dementia, and she would just crave sweet. The only thing she wanted was sweets all the time, all the
Wow,
time,
interesting.
which obviously then rotted teeth, and it caused a whole heap of other issues. But it was
And
the
this
only
is the manipulation that the body, as amazing as the human body is, that's the manipulation that we can't override. Claire, what were you going to say, darling?
Well, I was just going to say that's how I knew my boyfriend's mum had got cancer again, because she'd been given the all clear, and then I think a few months later she was craving dolly mixtures and jam donuts, and I just knew, we knew.
Jam donuts, my God, that's something I haven't
Yeah,
heard of in donkey's years.
I know.
Claire's
And
bringing
that,
it to the party today, isn't she?
God rest her soul. But yeah, that I just knew
Wow.
as soon as she started. Yeah.
And that was the cancer that actually killed her, Claire?
Yes.
Oh, shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we need to be recognizing these signs in our people, and like, I get that kids get pumped full of sugars, but what you can do is make alternatives, and maybe we'll speak about a little bit about that in a while, because I know all of us are big fans of that stuff. But we need to be recognizing these trends with our body. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't need anything sugary ever. I get my kicks from avocado, I get my kicks from fruits, I get my kicks from plants, because that's what I do. Like, I eat plants these days. However, I know there is probably 1 or 2 days of the month where I actually have to have a little battle with my mind. And it's normally, a week before my period, or in the 5 days leading up to my period. When I'm on my period, I'm good as gold. But there's just this thing that says, we need a little bit of sugar, we just need a little bit of sugar. And it takes a heck of a lot to override that, when you can go to any supermarket, any petrol station, just pick up a bar of chocolate, especially when you live with somebody like I live with, who loves all that stuff. Bless his heart. So let's get into the nitty gritty a bit this then. So I think we've all shared that we've been on one heck of a journey, and we haven't even scratched on the surface about it. Claire, obviously you and I are going to do another video about healing, so maybe we'll go into a little bit more details about it there. But I think it's fair to say that we are all, in our own rights, not necessarily an expert, but we are qualified to be sat here having this conversation. Obviously I've gone down the qualifying as a nutritionist route, qualifying as a health coach, because that's what sparked my soul back in 2014, 2015. Do I use it today? No. Although I do bring a lot of the information into my program so people are balanced. However, that said, I do feel that actually, what's the word I was going to use? Real life or real time is better than anything that can be taught. So just to make that very, very clear, I do think that our own healing journeys are the best. So Morwenna, talk to me about, because you were always a meat eater, right? Like myself.
Yeah, I was a huge meat eater.
Like, you were a meat eater as well, right?
I was, but I wasn't a huge meat eater. I liked a bit of lamb now and then. So that was the hardest thing for me. But yeah.
So for me, I used to eat meat at every meal time. It might have been fish, or it might have been chicken, but I actually didn't like it. When I was 8 years of age, I declared to my mum, I'm a vegetarian. And my mum was like, God, what am I going to feed you? Because all I ate was potatoes anyway, like, I was a real beige food child. How things change, but I was a real beige food child. So my mum was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to feed you. But fair play to her, she honoured me. And then when I was about 17 years of age, my stepdad was downstairs cooking bacon sandwiches, and I was hungover. So I just staggered downstairs, and I was like, I want one of those because it smells amazing. And that was it. I was back. And I would eat bacon sandwiches, and I would have chicken or fish or steak. Like, steak was my thing. And I believe that was because also I had a lot of low iron issues because of the way that my period structure was, sometimes that my iron would literally just fall out of my body, and then I'd crave steak to obviously replenish that, or at least one of the ways to replenish that. So steak was my thing. Steak was your thing too, Morwenna, right?
Yeah, I was red meat. I wasn't, when I was a baby and when I was a child, I lived in Norway for a number of years, and I used to eat a lot of fish when I was there. But as I came back into this country, and then as I grew up, it was mainly red meat. So things like sausages, bacon, steak. Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of chicken and turkey and stuff like that. I didn't really eat it that much.
I never liked turkey. I'd even forgotten
No,
about turkey. I never liked it. What was
it's
it?
gross. I don't think it tastes of anything.
Chicken to me.
At Christmas, everyone is exactly the same. Like, I don't like turkey, but I'll have it because
Oh no,
Because
we
it's
had beef at
Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah, see, I never liked turkey. Like, I would never eat it. Not at Christmas
No.
Day, nothing. I would rather have no meat. But chicken was the same for me. Like, I really couldn't resonate with chicken. I don't know what it was. It was the texture when I chewed it. Even if I had a beautiful chicken breast, you know, that had been cooked in all these beautiful lemon and herbs and yada yada yada, I'd chew it and I'd be like, ugh. Like, I just physically couldn't. But I think our bodies know. I think our bodies know. They tell us. So up until what point were you eating meat regularly, Morwenna?
I think I went veg. When was it? Must have been about 4 years ago.
Okay. And how
I
about you,
think
Claire?
3 or 4 years.
I stopped eating meat in 2010. And that was for health issues.
Yeah.
I decided that it was more of a healthy thing. But my thing was always bread, which is interesting now, considering the whole gut thing.
Yeah.
You know, toast and butter, sandwich, it was everything.
Let's come back to bread because that's another
No
topic that we
worries.
definitely need to touch on it. And it hadn't even entered my head because I don't eat it anymore. But we'll definitely come back to that because I think that's a very, very important subject, particularly around the gut. So myself, I stopped eating meat in 2016 again. So obviously I went from 8 to 16, 17, and then I got back on it in 2016 is when I had weaned myself off of absolutely everything. The way that I did it, I ditched chicken like a hot potato. I was like, oh, I'm getting rid of that because I just didn't enjoy it. But I would eat it because I was a professional fighter at the time. And I was told that I had to eat chicken with meals, you know, with salad or rice or whatever to make sure that I got the protein and it was lean and it was clean and it was this and it was that. And so I ditched that as quickly as possible. But I did keep fish and steak. That was my things. And actually what was so interesting is I always thought that I would be able to get rid of everything, but probably fish would be the most challenging. But it was the other way around. For me, I found it quite easy to step away from the fish. But this steak thing was like, you know, and admittedly, I was going through a lot of the things with my womb at that point again. So maybe that was the reason why I couldn't step away from the steak. But definitely by 2017, everything was completely gone from my life. And I haven't eaten meat at all since, like not once. I just, you know, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just sharing my perspective on this because I truly believe that depending on your blood type, you need certain things in your body. Depending on your lifestyle, on the levels of stress that you've got, I truly believe that we need different amounts. I do not believe that my body needs as much protein as a man does, for example. I just don't see it. I don't necessarily agree with the levels of protein that we're told that we need to have in our diet. I don't necessarily resonate with that. What I find works for me, and the reason that I went 100% plant-based for many, many, many years, is I am actually an A blood type. A blood thrives on fruits and vegetables. There's been so many tests done, so many studies done, and it's actually been scientifically proven that fruits and vegetables really, really help an A blood type person. Now, that said, if you are A blood type and you love eating meat, just stay with what you're doing. You know, as long as you feel healthy, as long as you feel happy. The way that I like to do this is eat a meal and tell me, like, before you cook the meal, how are you feeling? How are your energy levels? Whilst you're eating the meal, how are your energy levels? How are you feeling? And then 15 minutes to 45 minutes after, how are you feeling? Because that's the kind of processing time. Now, if you feel energized through all of those periods, then you're doing good. But if you eat a meal and, you know, like I live with one of these people, and I'm sure you girls do as well, that food gets eaten, then about 30 minutes later, oh my God, I'm so tired, I need a nap. Yeah. So that, when that happens, that's showing you that your body cannot process what you are doing. So it's as simple as that. Ask yourself those questions as you're eating. So Morwenna, how did you decide to start? Because it's not easy going from being meat eater to veggie, vegan, whatever you want to call it, plant-based. No. How did you make that transition?
I cut certain things out. I phased it really. So I cut like the chicken and the fish and the stuff that I didn't really like out, similar to you, and then just made a decision that from this date, that wasn't. I actually challenged myself as well. I'm quite competitive, even with myself. So if I set myself a challenge, then I tend to keep it. So I wanted to go meat free. I think I did it in what's the month we all go meat free?
January,
Yeah, that.
veganuary.
Yeah, that. I thought, okay, I'll do it for 3 days and see how I feel. And I got to the third day, I was like, oh, okay, that was quite easy. So I went to a week, and then it just carried on and carried on, and I just went from there. It didn't feel too difficult, because I think at that point I was like around you guys, and like I knew the alternatives that I could use and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't too, I didn't find it difficult. Did I miss meat? Yes. And I still miss it.
Well, just on that point, Morwenna, it's very difficult, isn't it, when you are normally used to having a portion of something on your plate and then all of a sudden it's gone. What do you replace it with?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that just, I found, was the mindset of, well, how am I going to fill myself up now?
Yeah, this aubergine is not going to have the same effect as a steak, but it does. It really does.
It's
and you get really creative. Like I really really enjoyed cooking when I first went veggie, because I just experimented with loads of different stuff, and they'd make jokes about what I was concocting in the kitchen this time. And I also lived with two meat eaters at the time as well, so I was cooking meat every day.
Wow.
And I didn't have it. But recently, like, it's interesting that you mentioned the blood type, because I'm a B positive, and my blood type is good with red meat.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've recently introduced red meat a couple of times a week to see, just as an experiment, really, just to see how I feel. And I actually feel like I'm thriving better now that I've got a little bit of meat in my diet.
Good.
But predominantly plant-based as well.
And I think this is the important thing, right? Of we have to recognize how powerful plants are, because there is a mentality that plants are the devil, they're really bad. But why would Mother Nature grow anything that is going to harm us, and literally give it to us in abundance? Like we do need to look at this. But I also really do love that. And I've recently added eggs back into my diet. I haven't eaten eggs in donkey's years, like literally donkey's years, probably gave them up before anything else. But I've recently started, I craved it. And like I've said, and I've always said this openly, if I start craving something, I will put it back into my diet, but not like I need chocolate. It's got to be my body is telling me on a number of occasions that I really need this. And I talk to my body and I ask it, do you really need this, or are you looking for something else? And actually, when I asked my body, it was like, no, we need eggs. And a bit like you, Morwenna, like I only eat them once a week maximum, but it's helping. It's helping with a number of things. And we'll go into that a little bit in a little bit. And how...
Go on. Sorry. I was going to say, using your intuition when you're doing that, and like you said, talking to your body and really understanding what's going on with yourself is so important, because without that communication, and
we're so caught up in doing what other people think. And again, this video is one of those videos, right? Like, we see the power in plants. There'll be a lot of people out there that are like, plants are bullshit. This is just a perspective. It's a perspective for you to feel into and make your decision. Should I attempt to eat more plants, or should I just not bother? It's one of those. So Claire, how about you? What was it for you? How did you find stepping away from meat? Obviously, you were doing yours for health reasons, so you were pretty focused.
Yeah. So what I decided was, I was giving myself 6 months, so I'd stop eating meat for 6 months, see how I got on, and then sort of go from there. I wasn't planning on stopping eating it forever. It was just going to be those 6 months and just see what happened. And as I progressed, I got to the 6 months and I was just like, wow, okay, I might as well just carry on, because for me, it did feel much better. But I always had in my head, I'm never going to deny myself.
Good for you.
Because I think when you deny yourself, that's when you want it. So I was just like, if ever I want it, then I will have some. But it never got to that stage.
Good for you. That's really interesting. So my journey is slightly different, because I obviously burnt out physically in 2014 and ended up running away from London and my lifestyle, to, in my words back then, put myself back together. And on this journey, I was actually training professional Muay Thai in Thailand, and well, I was fighting professional Muay Thai in Thailand, to be honest with you. And at one of the points when I was probably about a week or two away from a fight, I got that physical burnout thing coming. And a lady introduced me to a product, which I have spoken about with David once before, but she basically gave me these capsules that were loaded with fruits, veggies and berries. I knew nothing about it. Literally, she could have given me anything right then and I would have taken it because I was desperate. And what happened with me, and the journey that happened with me, is as soon as these capsules went into my body, probably within about a month, I was craving more fruits and vegetables. I wasn't craving the meat anymore. In fact, I didn't want it. It was like my cells had a whole new vibration put into them. And what I later found out is that these capsules have, the optimum level nutrition, because they have fruits and vegetables that are grown organically with no herbicides, no pesticides. They're not grown in a lab as genetically modified. They're real fruits and vegetables, literally ground down with all the nutrients. So they're grown till they're nutrient rich, and then they're ground down, put into a capsule for convenience. So for me, my intuition, or this lady's intuition, basically put me on the path to get my cells working in the way that I needed them to work. And so for me, maybe I had a bit of a helping hand. Maybe I got a bit of a shortcut. Maybe it was a bit easier for me because I had these nutrients running through my body. Now, I know obviously subsequent from then, you girls have obviously taken those capsules and you've had your own journeys with that. Do you feel that they helped at any point with the level of nutrients and the amount of plants that you could consume?
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking about this morning, and I have been taking those capsules that you're talking about for 10 plus years now, with a few gaps in between because I wanted to try different supplements and things like that. But at that point, 10 years ago, I think, is when I finally realized that I could heal my body. And I didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I knew that when I took these things, I felt incredible. And the weight started to come down, and the hair loss changed, the hair growth changed, and my hair started growing, and my nails were strong. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And it was at that point that I think it really hit home that, it's so simple. What is in those capsules is so simple, but it's so important to everybody, if you're a meat eater or not, because I was back then. It made a huge difference. And I think that is what started me looking at the power of plants, really, because up until that point, I'd never really experienced it, because I'd been, programmed to think that you had to do this and you had to do that. And if you were training at the gym, you had to eat chicken, rice and peas and whatever. Do you know what I mean? And none of it was working. And I was so reliant on medications, and IVF treatment was another thing that we started looking at because I could not get pregnant because of my cycles and stuff. And as soon as I started taking these capsules, everything felt differently. And it, just a massive change. But I didn't understand what was going on at that time. I just knew that I felt very different.
And how about you, Claire? Morwenna, I want to come back to you in a minute and just talk about, because obviously you are green fingered, about the nutrients in the soil and stuff like that. So I want to come back and talk about that a little bit more, if that's okay. And ladies and gents, if you want to know what these supplements are, go to the description field. There will be links there for you to be able to find them. So Claire, what was your experience with adding these supplements into your diet?
So mine was, I don't know if you remember, I came to you because I'd had such a, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just an absolutely terrible experience with the hospitals and the doctors. Like I said previously, they were giving me cancer drugs. I'd had so many steroids and antibiotics and God knows what, anti-inflammatories. I can't even remember what I was taking. But it just wasn't getting any better and I was getting worse. So when I started taking these, it helped me to come off the tablets, but also there were periods that they pretty much saved my life because my blood got so low and I wasn't able to eat anything that all I was taking was these capsules. And when very similar to your levels, probably, not many people survive. Let's put it
scary
at the levels we've been at. And these were what were keeping me going. So they actually kept me alive. And it was then I went down that road of looking at what sort of plants actually did to the body, and working that way. And yeah, that's what happened to me.
I think what you just said, Claire, about keeping you alive is a very, very good point that we just need to cover off. In 2018, I had to have a blood transfusion because of the sheer level of blood that I had lost, and I'd got to the point where my organs were starting to shut down. Now, the only thing that I did the whole time I was in there was pop these capsules, and I mean like sweets. You're only supposed to take like 2 of each capsule. They come in fruits, vegetables, and berries. So you're supposed to take 2 of each a day. I was taking 4 of each every couple of hours, because I was like, I need to give my blood the best opportunity to get oxygenated and get back into my body. It wasn't like I could or wanted to eat, but I was popping these capsules like it was something else. And the same company do like a powder, and they call it a protein powder, but it's not so much. And I was like drinking that as well, because hospital food is not great. So I'm like literally just pumping my body full of nutrients, and I am certain, Claire, like you are, that is what kept me alive during that period of time, because it is sheer fruits and vegetables of the most optimum nutritional value that is going into the body. And it's just a game changer, and so simple, like Morwenna said, so simple. So Morwenna, let's just talk a little bit about the soils and things like that, because we know you love to grow your own fruits and veggies. You love to get your hands in the soils, and I look at Morwenna and just see Gaia. Like that's what happens with Morwenna. So I just see this girl that does this with the soils and just is able to create absolute magic. So I think let's talk about the fact that most fruits and vegetables these days, and I actually heard a statistic just maybe even a week ago, 1 orange back in the day, maybe 50 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, is the equivalent, the nutritional value of eating 22 today.
Wow.
Like, it made my jaw hit the ground.
Yeah.
That is how we have depleted things, because we're either growing them in a lab, which people go, oh, it's all right, genetically modified's okay. No, it's not. You're not getting the nutrients that we actually need from this, and this is why there are so many sick people these days. But also our soils have been pilfered, for want of a better word. They've been abused massively. So let's look at normal fruits and vegetables that you grow, Morwenna. Like, your fruits and vegetables are amazing, right? They're a decent size, they fill you up and all the rest of it. But how do you know? Like, we know with these capsules, we know that they're grown in nutrient-rich soils. So how can people be able to tell that? Or, what's any advice that you can give to people around that?
There are test kits that you can buy to see like the pH levels. Depending on what you grow will depend on what the pH levels in the soil needs to be, for example. Also you can add things in. So I started to make my own compost with all my cuttings and my bits from the kitchen and eggshells and all that kind of stuff, and that's a really good way
Banana skins are good as well, aren't they? Banana skins and eggshells are supposed to be amazing to help soils.
It's got a lot of nitrogen in them, and a lot of the time the farmers, so what they'll do in sort of industrial size farming, they'll plant crops in between the crops to put nitrogen back into the soil, because that's the important thing. And I think recently I was saying to you not long ago that fruit and veg at the moment doesn't taste right. It doesn't taste of anything in the UK. I don't know what it's like in Spain.
Best thing I did was move to Spain. Like, the tomatoes taste freaking amazing. The strawberries, I'm like, I'm literally having orgasms as I eat them.
See, nothing does that over here at the moment for me, like fruit and veg wise. Like annually I crave pomelos. It sounds really weird, and it's a really obscure fruit.
But she does it really intensely.
Like I'll eat 4 of them a day at some point. And they're big, they're massive, they're bigger than a grapefruit. And this year I've just not. I had 1 or 2 and I was like, no. And it just wasn't giving me what my body obviously needed. But the soil has been depleted, I believe, and it doesn't help with the stuff that's in the skies and all the shit that's pumped through our waters and all that kind of stuff. It all contributes. So there are, you could speak about this for hours, but there are certain things you can add in.
Sure.
fertilizers and things like that that will make your soil more nutritious for your vegetables and seeds to grow in.
Yeah, for sure. So just on that point, going back to the capsules really quickly, just to close that bit out, because I know I've had a lot of questions on this recently. So I'm just going to use this opportunity to close those out. The way that this company grow their fruits and vegetables is they pick the areas around the world, predominantly in America, but around the world, that have the right conditions for the right fruits. So something that none of us talk about is certain countries like England is amazing for growing potatoes. But then you go to another country that's much hotter and whatever, and it's not so good, so the root vegetables tend to need a little bit of frost. So what this company have done is they've basically set up farms which basically have they've got them so that they don't get sprayed and they don't have any of that stuff going on, but they're grown in the best soil for that fruit and vegetable. And then what happens is they're picked, they're freeze dried, and then they're pulped, or the other way around, pulped and then freeze dried, so that they maintain the nutritional value that the human body requires, which is why so many people get such huge changes when they pop them into their diet. And I have to be honest, like, I was one of those people. I went from going to the toilet once every 2 weeks to, too much information, especially if David watches this. He'll be like, Lucy, I don't need to know this stuff. But like, I go 3 times a day without any issue. If I eat 3 meals, I go 3 times, like, that is, and I was literally clogged up for 2 weeks at a time. Like, I looked pregnant because my body just couldn't process. So I think it's a very important subject that we're talking about here. When your body has the right nutritional value in it, you are regular, you go to the toilet properly, your skin is clear, all of these things. All right. Couple of things that I want to touch on. Let's go back to the bread. And then I want to talk about something that nobody seems to be talking about. And maybe we're going to have to save this for another video, but how many people do you know that are losing their hair at the moment? I want to talk about that too. So let's start with the bread, because I think it links nicely on from the fact that my guts were clogged for 2 weeks at a time, probably to do with the amount of bread that I used to eat as a child. And it was, it's cheap to buy bread. I don't know now because I don't buy it, but back in the day, you used to be able to go to a supermarket, especially as a student, buy a loaf of bread for like 50p, 60p, something like that. Probably not even that much back then. I'm showing my age, but you could make toast with it. You could make a sandwich with it. You could make a toasty with it. Like, you could make whatever, and it would bulk up a meal. You could have beans on toast. You could have a slice of bread with some chips. Like, you could have a chip butty. You could make.
And it was quick.
It was quick, cheap.
It was quick. Yeah.
Now, the thing with bread is, when you make homemade bread with all of the homemade natural ingredients that have been sourced from decent places, a bit like what we're saying, that have been grown in the nutrient-rich soils, your body will probably be okay to process it. The thing is most bread it's loaded with sugar, it's loaded with gluten, and this is the processing that takes place. And that acts like a glue within the body, and it actually congests up our guts. Hence, we have a massive uprise in colitis, Crohn's, and all the other digestive issues that they've got out there. I mean, how many people do you know that have been diagnosed with IBS?
Oh, so many people.
Everybody.
My little half sister yesterday messaged me to say that they think she's got Crohn's. Literally, yeah. So nearly every other person I know has something with their digestive system.
Now, obviously, from an energetics perspective, the digestion system is very much about resentment, guilt, shame, anger, frustration, hurt, those emotions. So we must look at that. But we also need to look at the things that we're putting in our gut. Most people, and I'm going to be really bold here, and probably people are going to get pissed off with me, but I would say probably 99.9% of people have leaky gut. Now, leaky gut basically means you cannot consume the nutrients correctly. It just basically seeps out. So you're not getting what you need. Why do we get leaky gut? Because we eat crap food. Too much sugar, too much alcohol, too many drugs, too much bread, too much gluten. All of these things add to and compound the issues. On top of that, with the energetics of anger, hurt, shame, resentment, guilt, frustration, which we all have in our lives daily, of course, how is our body going to perform the way that we need it to? So for me, I definitely had leaky gut back in the day. And the way that I healed that gut was obviously having this beautiful supplement that I've just been speaking about, a really, really decent probiotic, like a powerful, powerful probiotic, and changing my diet and changing my lifestyle. So I removed the stress. Now, were you ever diagnosed with leaky gut, Claire?
No, they told me colitis, but I believe it was leaky guts, because, you know, with the food that I was eating and parasites, and obviously the emotional sort of side of it as well. But it was definitely leaky gut. I know that. I know that for a fact.
And we do know that, don't we? Did
Yeah.
you ever have digestive issues, Morwenna, or?
Yeah, constipation was my main one, and bloating, but also it's just reminded me leaky gut. You did an iridology session for me. I think that was the first time we met in person, and you told me if I didn't sort my shit out, I was going to get leaky gut. And you probably weren't wrong.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So it has been something that's been in my consciousness since that point, because I was like, well, I don't want that. I don't really understand what it was at the time, but I was like, that sounds horrible. I don't want it.
Yeah.
But I love bread. I really love bread.
But do you think the bloating and constipation stuff was linked to bread? Because mine was 100%.
I think it probably had a lot to do with it, amongst a few other things. But yeah, I think bread, because I was eating it all the time. Like if I wanted a snack, I'd have bread and butter.
Yeah.
And it had to be like the really cheap, nasty white bread. Like I loved the white bread, and I'd fight people for the crust. Do you know what I mean? Like if anybody left crust on their plate, I'd be like the bread hoover eating them, because it was like my favorite thing. Although it wasn't, it was an addiction. You know, it was the sugar in it and everything else that was in it. And I do still eat bread, but not very. Okay, like very occasionally I'll eat bread, and when I do, I tend to go for like a sourdough, or I'll make my own. I love making bread.
I get it. Like I get it. I love avocado on toast. Like I love it. It's one of my favorite things. Smashed avo. And I actually had it with David the other morning. And like I say, I wouldn't normally have it, but it was like a real beautiful artisan bread. And I thought, do you know what? It's bound to be made right. And then for the afternoon, my guts were going rah, 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 rah. David was like, what the hell is going on with you? It wasn't like I was passing wind or anything like that, but my guts were like rah, rah, rah. And I was like, clearly I can't tolerate bread still. I think we've got to accept that little ditty needs to go. And sometimes we need to be humbled, right? We get a little bit confident, and you know, like I love going out for food. You guys know I love my food so much, and you know, the opportunity to have it, and it was amazing. But was it worth the whole afternoon? My stomach grumbling and making it was literally saying to me, "What are you doing? You know we can't tolerate this, so why are you having it?" And this is what we need to acknowledge with our bodies. It's constantly talking to us and constantly sharing with us.
Yeah,
and it's interesting you say that. Sorry, Morwenna. Because when I was having my problems with my digestive system, I was still craving bread. I knew that, you know, it wasn't good for me, but I still wanted it. But it was almost like I'd been drugged after, because I used to get this really weird feeling of just like somebody, you know, like you see on films where they've, you know, been drugged and carted off. It was that really weird feeling. Yeah. And it would take me about an hour to actually come back to normal.
And this is why I said earlier, look at how you feel after you've eaten the food, because that is not normal. That's your body saying, hello, this is not a good experience for you. Likewise, my gut's grumbling like that. Like I say, there was no passing of wind or anything like that, but that grumbling, you have to listen to it. It's not good. What were you going to say, Morwenna?
I was just going to say bread's my indication that diet's slipping. Because I know when I start eating a lot of bread again, I'm like, okay, right, I know I need to do something now.
I'm being manipulated. I'm being manipulated. I know what you're doing.
And you know what? I'll own it. It does happen, and I'm glad it does, because I know what it is now, and I recognize it. So when I start eating a lot of bread, or like I'm craving a sandwich every single lunchtime or something, I'm like, right, okay, what can I do differently here? And it spurs me on to make different choices and better ones. But yeah, it's
okay, let's just round up with this thing about the hair then, because I'm shocked. Okay, in July 2021, I got COVID. I was pretty poorly. You girls will remember I was pretty poorly. I was taken out for about 2 weeks, literally on my backside, lost 6 kilos of weight, like overnight. It just shedded. I couldn't stay awake. I was constantly asleep. You know, it was ridiculous. In the September, all of my hair started falling out. And again, you girls will remember, I was like literally just running my hair through my hand through my hair, and I'd have a clump of hair in it. And it scared me so much. I was so scared. I ended up going to see one of the top specialists in London to figure out what was going on. And he actually said to me, you know, it seems to be a common thread that once you've had that particular virus or whatever they call it these days, 3 months later, your body goes into a bit of a shock and it starts trying to heal in the best way it can. Now, what was interesting is maybe the start of the following year, my hair started to look really good again. It started to really replenish. It started to look healthy. It started growing back. And then at some point last year, it started falling out again. Now, it was probably because my iron dropped. But it was at this point that I thought, right, what can I do? How can obviously, I know what I need to do with the plants. And I think I'd taken a break from the capsules at that time, interestingly enough. So I put those capsules back in my diet. I upped obviously my green leafy vegetables to up the iron content. And I looked, at what other foods that I could do. And there's some amazing stuff out there, like capers are really good to help boost. Things like that. So, I really, really go deep into this. I take my food very seriously. Like I really do take my food very seriously. But I was also looking at physical products that I could put on my hair. In fact, if I remember correctly, I had found a shampoo that was supposed to boost the hair follicles and all the rest of it. And by using that, it had made all my hair fall out again. So that's what I think it was. So I was like, oh my God, I need to somehow look after my skin and look after my scalp. And how do I replenish and regenerate? Anyway, obviously, towards the end of last year, or the middle of last year, start to middle of last year, I met David, and David and I were talking about all of these things. We used to spend thousands of hours in the car together, so we would talk about everything, our woes, our goods, the bad to the ugly, all of that stuff. And I kept saying to him, like, my hair, I've just I just want my hair back, And so bless his heart, he actually got his scientific mate, whatever, to actually make something for me to put in my hair and replenish the follicles and all the rest of it. And also he got another product for him to use, but I used it as well. And so the combination of those two products, plus the supplementation that I was doing, plus the diet, plus removing the stress, plus allowing love in my life, like my hair is looking great again now. David and I are constantly saying, like, it's coming back, like it's growing. We've got new hair coming constantly. And it is just, it's great that that's happening. But when I was out there looking for products during this period of time, I was absolutely mortified. I found something on Instagram or Facebook or I don't know, somewhere, and there was like 10,000 women talking about how their hair was falling out. And I'm like, why is nobody asking the question as to why this is happening? Why are we all just searching for things and not saying, hey, hang on a minute, we need to talk about this. It's not normal for our hair to fall out. What has changed in our diet? What has changed in our lifestyle? What has changed in our water system? What has changed with EMFs? Because all of this stuff is contributing to us having our hair fall out. Now, Morwenna, I know you've had with your hair as well, haven't you?
Yeah, see, I'm horrible to my hair. I dye it all the time.
I haven't dyed mine since it fell out.
No, then through the years I've been all sorts of different colours, and a number of years ago I went to the hairdressers and I said I want to go from, I think it was blue to red or something in one sitting. So what she did was bleach blaft my hair twice in one day. And from that point
you're
onwards,
lucky you've still got hair.
Yeah, and I lost probably 6 inches off my hair the day after. It fell off. It was on my pillow. I thought it was really quite scary how it was happening. And like you, I had clumps of hair coming out. So I did a lot of like the Oplex treatments and things like that to get lots of nourishment back into the hair. But it was things like the capsules that made the most difference. And I had a break from the capsules and my hair stopped growing and it looked lank and it wasn't nice. And like for the last couple of years, I've been trying to I'm not trying, I am getting my hair back to where it was. And finally, at the moment, I feel like it's actually looking better. It's feeling thicker again, and it's starting to grow. Which is really, really good. I'm using a much more natural, I mean, it's still chemicals, but much more natural hair dye to get rid of my roots, my greys.
See, I'm allowing the greys to be embraced. You know what? Like I have not dyed my hair since it fell out. I can't. I have this block. I'm like, oh my God, what if? What if the next time? And I'm okay with that. So I know that I'm building it back up, and I know at some point I will, but I'm even scared to go and get it cut, because I'm like, oh, what if they brush it too hard, or they use the wrong
Yeah.
shampoos and stuff like that. So I'm being way neurotic about it, but I am getting to the point now where I'm like, actually, you know what, I found a couple of hairdressers here, and I am going to be going in the next week or two, because I am feeling much more confident with my hair now. But it's a I was just about to drop the F-bomb. It's a bloody long journey. It's been such a huge journey, and very humbling. Again, very humbling. Like I've never done much with my hair. Like, yeah, I used to have it different colors or whatever, but I've never like curled it or permed it, or, had it chopped and then grown it and done it. Like I've just left my hair to just be, but it's very scary when it just falls out.
Yeah. I think it's a real female thing as well. I mean, there are probably men out there that hate the fact that they're balding or whatever, but when your hair's falling out and you can't stop it, and you don't understand why it's happened, or you have no control over why it's happening, I think a lot, like, my hair was my thing. One of my nicknames is Red. Like, it's part of my identity. And when it sort of fell off and started breaking and looked crap, I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, I don't feel like me anymore. But actually, it made me look at a lot of other stuff, because my hair doesn't define me. And if it did all go, then I feel more comfortable about it. I wouldn't like it, but it is scary when it happens, and when you can't control it.
For sure. Claire, what were you going to say, love?
Well, I was going to say it's interesting that because I've never stopped taking the capsules. And my hair, I know, just putting it out there. But I've, aside from back in sort of 2018, 2016 to 2018, when I was having my sort of real issues, I've not had my hair.
Okay, so there's one clever one out of the three of us.
Yeah. But yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there.
No, thank you. That's really beautiful. Now, just to close this out, the energetics of losing your hair is you're pulling your hair out. So look at where your frustrations are. Look at where you are. Like, why is this happening to me? Look at that level, so that you can obviously start to clear that as well. That's what I do constantly. Like, if my hair starts falling out again, I'm like, oh God, who's annoying me? Like, Lucy, get on top of it. Who are you allowing to get under your skin? Because that is what the energetics are about with this.
Makes
oh my
sense.
God, I've loved this chat, girls.
It's been really good.
Let us know.
It's been great to catch up, ladies.
It's been really beautiful. So, ladies and gents watching this, I hope this has helped you. I hope it's answered some of your questions. Like I said earlier, there will be in the description field, there will be links how you can find Morwenna, how you can find Claire, and how you can get your hands on the crystals. I was about to say, they are like crystals, the capsules, if you so wish. All the links will be below. And Morwenna and Claire, thank you so much. It has been really beautiful to have this chat with you, and I just feel really like I'm vibrating at a beautiful level now, because we've been talking about such gold. So do comment below, let us know if you've got any questions, and we will take a check back over the comments as soon as we possibly can. Ladies and gents, thanks for joining us. We will see you in the next video. Hopefully these girls will be back with me very shortly. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Bye.